Hi all, welcome back to Beanie Composter. When it comes to composting, generally most people think about just putting grass clippings, fruit peelings and general garden waste into their compost bin. But can you actually compost meat and meat bones, whether that's raw or cooked? Well, believe it or not, if you've got a hot bin, yes you can. Meat and fish, whether that's raw or cooked, is an organic material, so it will compost, but there are a few golden rules that you need to follow before you actually put it into your hot bin. So today I'm going to show you how to compost meat bones or just raw meat in your hot bin with no problems. Now in some places it's forbidden to put raw meat, cooked meat into your compost, and for good reason too, because if you're not careful, raw meats and that can attract pests and it can also carry pathogens, so you need to be a little bit careful when you are composting raw meats, fish and stuff like that. As I've said, there are a few golden rules that you need to make sure you follow before you start putting meat and that into your hot bin. So the most important one is you need to be proper hot composting. So you need to be within the green zone on your hot bin. Have a look what we're at the moment and we'll see if that's safe to do so. As you can see here, we're in the green zone, which is between 40 and 60 degrees centigrade, and that means we're safe to be putting raw meat or cooked meats into our hot bin. So I've got some cooked meat here and a little bit of raw meat as well, which is all chicken, so it's bones and a little bit of meat as well. Number 2 golden rule with this one is don't go putting loads and loads of cooked meat and raw bones into your hot bin. So don't go, trotting off to the butcher asking them for a ton of bones and putting those into your hot bin, because that just won't work. So this is just general household sort of, if you've cooked a whole chicken or you've got like some chicken pieces or some meat where you've got some bits of bones, it's not like going to the butchers, as I say, and collecting as many bones as possible. So we've got a little bit of raw meat here, which I wouldn't generally be putting into the hot bin, but this is just for demonstration purposes only. Normally I'd cook this and would get rid of all the chicken first that's been cooked on there, but whenever you're putting a carcass or some bigger parts like this in, then it's always better if you can break it down as small as possible. So just, as small as you can will help it sort of break down better. And as I'm doing this, I can smell it starting to smell not great. So this is another reason why you need to be careful when you're doing this. So make sure like all the containers you're mixing it in get washed out afterwards if you are going to do raw stuff. And if you're doing the cooked stuff and it's just come straight from your saucepan, which I normally do, I put it straight in the hot bin as soon as it's been cooked or we've eaten it, rather than letting it sit around the house and getting warm and just starting to smell, which will attract things even worse. Anyhow, so everything is sort of broken up quite small. So in this bucket I've got the normal bulking agent as well mixed in with that, and we're going to add in some normal household waste, which has also got a bit of cooked food and some more eggshells and bits and pieces. This has been sitting around for a little while. I wouldn't normally keep it this long, but we just wanted to wait until we film this video. and I'm going to just break that down like the eggs and everything. Now, where I said making sure your hot bin is hot in the hot zone is important, just as important for me also is making sure your carbon bag that's in the top of the hot bin is still in there, because that will help to eliminate any odours that come from the cooked meats and the raw meat that is generally starting to cook in your hot bin. So that's another, make sure that's definitely in your hot bin before you go to do this. So the reason I'm saying this is, on a few comments we've had some people that take their carbon filters out and they find the temperature comes up a lot better leaving the carbon filter out. So if you do that, then I would advise not putting any raw meat into your hot bin if you've not got the carbon bag in there. I would generally, if we're eating chicken at home, then as soon as it comes to, like, you know, scraping the plates, I would generally just bring the plate out, and if the hot bin is hot, I would put it straight into the hot bin without leaving it into, you know, your kitchen caddy where it could attract flies, and you know what I mean anyway. So if you are just leaving stuff into the buckets like I'm doing here, then make sure you wash them afterwards, because they're also gonna maybe attract flies and rats or mice, so you don't really want that. And when it comes to putting meat into the hot bin, make sure your hands are not filthy dirty like mine. Make sure they're nice and clean and your gloves are not all contaminated with raw meats or cooked meat, because if you start, you know, lifting the lid up and touching your hot bin and you leave sort of meat smears and that all over it, that also would attract flies and rats and things like that, which you don't want. So make sure everything's nice and clean. So you change your gloves if you like me, and you just be quite careful with your hygiene practices when you're putting meat into the hot bin. We showed you the dial what was going on inside the hot bin earlier on in the video, and for some of you, you might have thought, well, that's not as hot as I would expect it to be. But I haven't fed the bin for a few days. We've just been storing up the food ready for this video, but I know once I add this, the temperature's going to come straight back up and we are going to be proper, you know, 50 degrees plus hot composting. If your hot bin is borderline in around the 40-degree mark and you're struggling to get the temperature up, then I probably wouldn't advise going ahead and putting raw meats in unless you know that it's definitely going to come up to probably, you know, 50 degrees or a bit hotter. So just be aware. Make sure you understand what's happening with your hot bin as well with the temperatures, like that you know it's generally going to be hot composting for a little while as soon as you add in the meat. I'll just give that a little stir so you can see there's plenty of heat still left in there. And what I generally do is in the middle I sort of make a little sort of hole just down below, and I would put the bones directly into that bit. So we've got our bulking agent and we've got extra greens or more, you know, kitchen waste, and I just give them a little bit of a stir in to make sure they go into the thing. We're going to add in the paper as well. And I just give that a little stir around, and I try to make sure the bones are covered over so they're not actually lying straight on top. So I bring up a little bit of the side, just to make sure that, you know, they're covered over and we're not going to end up with all the bones sticking right over on the top. And if you find something like that in your hot bin, a big clump of paper, then that might be why your hot bin's not getting hot. So just as you give it a little stir around, just check for things like that. So we've covered most of that over, so there's no bones really right at the top now. And then keep the temperature dial back in there. As I say, that should be coming up into the green, and we know we are hot composting there. I know that from looking at it. If you are a little bit concerned that you've got some meat juice or just bits of meat on your hot bin, then there's no harm in giving it a little bit of a wash with some, you know, diluted Dettol or whatever you want to use, just to get rid of all that sort of smell. But if you do it the way I sort of mentioned, as in putting it straight from the plate into your hot bin, then you shouldn't really have to do that, and you wouldn't be cleaning out your bucket and things like that. What I will say is, once you've put your meat and that in there, you probably are going to do this anyway, because that's sort of the way things are with the hot bin. But keep an eye on things and keep coming back every day or couple of days and just checking that you're still in the hot composting zone. Make sure when you come out you check around like the hot bin, just for like any sort of flies, and I don't mean the small little flies that you generally, like fruit flies that you see around your hot bin anyway. I mean like the big blue bottles, things like that, that would really be attracted to the meat. So check there's nothing like that. Check around your hot bin for any vermin, so like rats have been chewing it, or there's droppings, which really it shouldn't happen, but it's always good to keep around your hot bin nice and clean and tidy. So give it like a sweep if there's lots of leaves gathering around. Just, you know, like I say, just be mindful of what's going on with your hot bin. There should not be any problems, but make sure you are hot composting. And with meat, it will break down a lot slower than your normal general greens, so like grass clippings, fruit and veg peelings. So meat is going to take a lot longer. So I wouldn't advise, if you want to do like a 30-day compost cycle for mulching, I wouldn't be putting meat in if I was going to do this. So when I put meat and that in, I give it the full 90-day before I empty it, and I make sure we are hot composting for most of that time. Now, it doesn't matter how long you leave your compost in your hot bin, those bones are never going to break down. So what's going to happen is, when you come to empty your hot bin compost, you're going to end up with this. So you're going to end up with compost full of bones like this. And if you don't sieve your compost, and you just, like I do, you just put your compost on the garden as almost like a mulch, then you're going to end up with your garden after a couple of years looking like a graveyard. So as you can see with our garden, where I've put compost down for mulching, we've got bones that you're just, as the rain washes them and the sun dries them out, you'll just end up with, like I say, almost like a graveyard. Now the little un, I used to get him to do a dinosaur hunt, and he'd come along and he'd pick all the bones up, but he's starting to grow out of that now, so that's another job I've got to do. So what I do is I tend to go round and just pick them all up. Bloody hell! So I've shown this before on a few videos, but if you collect all your bones up, then you can just get almost like what you would say a pestle and mortar and just crush them all up. So I'm just using a hammer and a bit of wood, but all I do is I just get them and I just give them a good old crush up, and they generally turn into almost powder, and you can just spread that onto your garden, and they are definitely going to break down and they're not going to look so unsightly. So it's a little bit more effort, but it saves you going out and buying that fish and bone powder that you can put on your garden. So a quick summary on the bench. Now, if you want to compost meat and bones and all that sort of garbage, then it's really down to you to make the call whether you want to go ahead and do that. I've sort of shown you how I do it. I've never had any problems with pests and vermin and any problems, but like I say, it's really down to you. But as I say, there are a few golden rules to remember. That is, make sure your hot bin is hot composting, make sure your carbon bag is in place and you haven't taken that out. Continuously monitor what's going on with the temperature, make sure that it's still hot composting and that you know that you can keep it hot composting. And just check around your hot bin, make sure you sort of monitor everything that's going on, that it's definitely not attracting anything, and cut the pieces up into as small as possible, just to help the the meat and that to decay quicker. And also remember, meat and bones and carcasses are not going to decay as quick as other greens and that, so just be mindful of that if you're going to empty your hot bin quicker than normal. And also, when you are composting bones and meat, make sure you add other greens and other carbon bits to it like you normally would, and don't just add bones only into your hot bin unless it's just the odd couple here and there from your dinner plate. I hope this video has helped you out. Any questions, leave them in the comments. Don't forget, if you haven't already subscribed, to subscribe. I hate keep saying that all the time, but it does help the algorithm in the YouTube channel grow the channel for us, and as you know, all these things do help each other out with the community thing we're trying to achieve. And all there's left for me to say is I've got to clean that bloody bucket now. And oh yeah, we've been filming this for probably about 15 minutes since we put the stuff into the hot bin, so I'll quickly show you what temperature we're up to now, and then it's a goodbye from me and happy composting. I was pretty confident the hot bin was going to come up to temperature. This is literally no BS. 15 minutes since we put this stuff in, and we're already back up to what I call a nice temperature. As you've seen there, I'm nicely into the green, between the 40 and the 60 degrees. I know I can maintain that. If you're having problems maintaining yours, then have a look at our channel. Make sure you check out some of our videos and leave comments. But until next time, happy composting and enjoy.